Now, Rubric 2 goes with prompts 3A and 3B. 3A is explain how your instruction engaged students in developing the strategy and the skills. 3B is about what you planned for in your planning, about how are you connecting with prior academic learning and personal, cultural, and community assets that are relevant to the new learning. Now, the do's for this one: explain the progression you are focusing on and why it will work. When we're talking about how your instruction engaged students in developing, what you are really trying to say here is, how am I introducing the idea? How am I generating interest? How am I modeling the skill? And how am I showing it in different ways that are going to start developing an understanding by the students? One of the things we've talked about before, and if you took the assessment class we've talked about, is that when you learn something, when you memorize something, you really just talk about it in one way. To really understand something, you need to start bringing it up in a variety of ways, relating it to their personal lives, relating it to other ideas, and so on, to build a richer network of understanding. So basically, because you want them to ultimately be able to at least apply the skill, you will want to show it in a whole bunch of different ways, and then give them examples, give them opportunities ultimately to do it themselves, and you give feedback and deepen their understanding and so on, come up with some tricky situations in which it might be a little bit different and all that other stuff. Another do: keep everything you talk about related to your learning objectives. Be specific and give concrete examples. I can't say that enough. I always say that's when you are talking about how your instruction engaged students in developing an essential literacy strategy and related skills, make sure that you say, for example, at minute 5, I did this in order to do that. Bring that back to your lesson plans, tell them where you're going with it, and then talk about it, and then you can see at minute 7, this is how it worked out. Justify continually throughout this then, when you are talking about why exactly you chose the texts you did, the examples you did, the pacing that you did, the assessments that you did, you link it back to what you already knew. You will have written about this already in your planning. So this is just basically saying, this is what I did and how I did it. Said I was going to do it. This is how I actually did it. If we look at, if we look at the rubric for that one, this is the engaging students in learning. Level 3, the students are engaged in learning tasks that address their understanding of, the essential literacy strategy for comprehending or composing text and related skills. So you said you were going to teach about a strategy and the component skills. You're demonstrating that students are actually doing that. You link prior knowledge to new literacy and learning. Don't even though they specifically ask you about how you are linking community, personal, and cultural assets, you don't even need that for a 3. This is one of those situations where a 4 should really be a slam dunk. When we look at a 4, students are engaged in learning tasks that integrate their understanding of the strategy for comprehending or composing and related skills. So basically you are building those skills into that strategy. Again, the strategy is something that's somewhat complex. It can be broken down into its components. You need to demonstrate that you're constantly linking those pieces back to the overall strategy. Something you should have planned for in your lesson plans, and again, you're just pointing out that yes, this is what I actually did. The other thing is that you're going to talk about how you are using not just prior academic learning. I knew that they were ready for this because of how they did on last week's test, or I did a pre-assessment, But also you're talking about the choices, the pacing, the examples, the tasks in the context of what those students bring to the classroom themselves, their interests, their values, their community, their history. If you look at a level 5, you are setting them up for a situation that continually challenge them and really get them to be able to use that strategy independently, because they are always being pushed to really deepen and apply it in a new situation. The other part of that is that you aren't just talking about how you did this, but you are getting the students to think about how what they're learning now relates to what they learned in the past and who they are as individuals. I think in this case, a 4 is pretty easy to get. A 5, I think, is a little more difficult, but definitely doable. If we look down at level 1 and level 2, right, not focused on the skill or the tasks, there's no evidence that you are linking anything to what they're doing in the classroom. You didn't use what you knew about the students, about their prior academic learning, or their cultural, community, personal assets in your planning. But I think that's all we really need to talk about in terms of that one.